here's where I really use flexible dieting to help me out. And I did a ton of this with my last prep. And it was just fluctuating in like caloric amount. I thought that was like a huge breakthrough for me. Like, I obviously don't always know exactly what your deficit is, but it's like I could have a 700 calorie deficit or I could have a 300 calorie deficit just based off like how I felt that day. You know, where is my training? How am I looking? And being able to just like play around with that, especially when I got to like those low levels of body fat. Oh, that was amazing. Like it saved my butt in a bunch of different ways. You know, again, whether it be like a really hard day outside of the gym where it's just like, okay, no, I need to be on my A game, like really be there physically and mentally, or just getting me through some really important training sessions, or maybe prevent me from wasting away too quickly, you know, like that sort of deal. But being able to, just be pliable. It was worth all the bullshit that I had to encounter in order to get to this point. Absolutely. And thankfully, I don't think, you know, if you're new to this, you don't have to, again, go through all the like ups and downs that we went through, because looking back, like, yeah, there's some stuff that was quite comical. Someone was selling at some point t-shirts with like your macros. Like, could you imagine
like a badge of honor kind of a thing? Like how you,
yeah. Oh, okay, what's up? 65, 300, 200. How you doing? You know, like, talk about.
And that's Bert, that's a really hard thing to teach somebody. You know, the kind of moving macros. You know, because imagine how terrible it would be to say, "Oh, damn, I'm out of macros today, and I got to go work out." You know. And to have this rigid approach that is somewhat flexible, and that you can have these different flexible foods to meet your macros, but I'm out of macros on this day, you know, and I still got training to do or whatever, you know. I gotta teach the kid, you know, some Common Core math this evening. You know, yeah. That's not a real fun thing to do when you're hangry, you know. Yeah. But yeah, I one of the things that I do to kind of help people to do that. You know, is our sheet that we've got, you know, I just tell them sometimes I want you to hit this weekly amount, you know, whether it's 17,000 calories or 20,000 calories. Bert, yours would probably be about 24,000 calories, but, you know, hit this weekly amount, and then you can kind of let your days kind of ebb and flow a little bit. You know, I've got one guy that's he's a cop, and he is on his feet a lot, and usually once a week, you know, he ends up getting called in, and he's got to work like an 18-hour shift, you know. And I'm like, you know what you need to do there, partner? You need to have more food on that day, you know. And I want you to just basically eat to, you're really good at it, Bert. I don't know sometimes how you do it, but you can a lot of times tell, like, you know, when you're playing with Haley that, oh my gosh, I just burnt a lot. I just expended a lot of calories. I need to eat a little bit more. And so I kind of will use tools like that to kind of help people learn that. And that's kind of something that I think has been, that's flexible dieting as well, you know? And that's been kind of a game changer for a lot of people, you know, to where, yeah, they don't feel like they have to run out of macros and then wait till midnight, you know, to start eating again. You know,
the macro reset question. We're not answering it on this podcast.
Exactly. Yeah.
And Steve, you work with a lot of people who are kind of, you know, they're on more on the general population side of things. So I imagine, like with you, like those systems really come in handy where it's like, hey, you look at where the person is at, what they've experienced, what sort of system they might thrive under, and like that's the tools you hand over to them, right? So I imagine it's very dynamic in that way, and people, what you do with one person is going to differ a lot compared to, you know, say another person who, from the outside, the profile might look pretty similar.
Definitely. And that's why I like a lot of what you've been saying, Berto, has been like, this whole thing is a process, like trying to like figure out how to eat with this style. And even Brad was just touching on that. It's like, it's easy to assign macros, but it's a process to figure out, okay, well, where is this sweet spot for me in terms of like a sustainable way of eating that's not too rigid, not too flexible. And that's why it's like a lot of times with my clients, I do like that balance of like, hey, like here are like your anchor meals as you described, and like, hey, here's kind of like how you eat throughout the day. but then also like, hey, there are these like calorie goals, so you have flexibility within that. And I still kind of like that, like old school, like, and it depends on the person, but like that 80-20 kind of a principle that was floating around for a while of like 80% of your foods being like wholer foods, you know, that are going to have fiber and keep you full, and, you know, protein and fruits and veggies, and like 20% of like, hey, you can just eat those because you like the taste of them. And that's the only reason, or like, they don't need to have anything else with them. And like that could change, you know, if somebody has I have a pretty high calorie intake that I need, and I know you do as well, Berto. So it's like ours might be 70-30 to like hit our requirements. Let me get like 70% of my foods from like these like whole sources to like hit my fiber, my protein, fruits and veggies. But the other 30% can just be because they taste good and like they help me hit my calorie goal. So it's a little like, gets kind of like an old school thing, but I kind of, I think sometimes it's just helpful for me to have like those little guidelines. So it's at least some sort of a frame of reference to describe this process to people. Yeah. Like, okay, that's like a general like place to start with this. I don't know if you guys remember that kind of principle, that 80-20 that was going around, or if you guys use that or any of that.
It finds its way into everything else. Like quite often, like I'll tell this to people, like when I'm building like a program for them initially, I'm like, I usually get about 80% of it right, and then 20% of it, like we'll just like have to tighten like that up, and it's that little box that we're going to, you know, basically focus on. So yeah, no, that 80-20 rule, like it's everywhere. And yeah, with the processed foods, like, I mean, yeah, if you're in a hypocaloric phase and, you know, you're relatively active male who has, you know, I guess that odd response to overfeeding where it, you know, just, I guess it drives you to move a little bit more. It's like those processed foods save your butt like so often. Like there's times where I'm like, I would have lost weight, you know, this month for a number of reasons, like had it not been for pizza, you know, and Skittles. So yeah, I mean, it's once you get familiar with, you like food, but it's also, you know, especially if you're a bodybuilder, it's an important tool. You just get so much like more handy with it. It's like, okay, it's like you got a little bag of Skittles. You're like, I got just the tool for like this job. And in that context, like those Skittles are like super, super appropriate. Yeah, with the flexible dieting, I think, I mean, I've been there before, like where you want to hire an expert or learn from experts, and you just want to find your freaking answer, like to whatever problem you might have on your hands. But you know, we talk about like customized plans, and one thing that I enjoy about this is that the final leg of customization, like that's really like up to the athlete, and it kind of gives them that responsibility where it's like, okay, like, you know, these are, I don't know, it's kind of like, this is the house, but what you decorate it with, like, that's up to you, man. Like, you're going to make this your own, basically. And that's how we end up doing this for a very long time consistently. But yeah, I think initially some folks don't like that, the pressure. So you still hear that a lot where folks are like, macros didn't work for me, you know? And it's like, it's like you're missing out. It's just like it's such a sophisticated system at its like highest levels, I guess, is the way I view it.